You can see it. There we are. Hello everybody, and welcome to A2i Dyslexia live show, all things dyslexia. We are extremely sorry for coming on a little bit late. We had a little bit of technical hitch trying to sort it out, and it didn't work. So we couldn't leave our viewers and our listeners hanging, so we're here and we're going to try our best to make this show work. Extremely sorry for coming on late. These things happen when you're doing a live show. So hello everybody. I must apologize. Last week we weren't able to come live, but what we did do, we ended up giving a pre-recorded video of Nathaniel Hawley, and I hope you enjoyed watching the video and also got some information from it. Welcome everybody to our live show. Today we have Pat Taylor, who is a specialist dyslexia teacher and who will be talking to us about how she became a specialist teacher and the importance of the work she does, and also how parents engage with her and children who love the work that Pat Taylor does. And as I explained, you won't be able to see Pat live because we did have technical hitch. So she will be speaking and of course answering our questions this evening. So hello everybody, my name is Elizabeth Techi, the founder of A2i Dyslexia. I'd like to introduce the amazing Pat. Like I said, you would not be able to see her, but you can hear her. And when we are doing these live shows, anything can happen, as you all know. So welcome, Pat, to A2i Dyslexia live show. Like I said, we won't be able to see you, but I'm sure the information you're going to share with us this evening would be equally as brilliant. Welcome. Can you hear me, Pat? Hello?
Can you hear me, Lizzie?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Pat?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm so sad I can't see you, though.
Oh, do you know what? These things happen. It's a live show and anything can go wrong.
Oh,
you know?
my God.
And we did have it all sorted out, but you know, the technology has its own way of doing things. So we will share the information with our viewers, our listeners. Unfortunately, like I said, we can't see you, but I'm sure you've got lots of stuff to talk us through today. So hello everybody, welcome. Our show this evening, and I'm in the UK, I'm in London, so I can say this evening, no matter where you are, hello is what I'd like to say. Today's topic is about a specialist teacher's experience of teaching young children with dyslexia and why she loves her job so much and the importance of why parents should really seek help and so forth. So Pat, welcome to A2i Dyslexia live show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are, and why you love your job so much.
Oh, do you know what? Somebody asked me that today, and I thought it doesn't actually feel like a job anymore, simply because I really do enjoy it. A little bit about myself. Well, I think I'll probably start at the beginning, Lizzie, because I originally trained as a teacher, but my background actually is in art. So I went to art college. One art college, Chelsea School of Art, and then another one, Middlesex. And in between that time, I had a cousin who was an educational psychologist, and what she did was she ran holiday programs in the summer, like the 6 weeks holidays. So she ran like summer schools, and she also ran a Saturday school. And so she roped me in, and my role in the play centres, as they were called then, was always to do the arts and the crafts with the children. And I thought, and this was going on for a few years, and I just thought, if I knew more about how they learn, I could do more. And that's why I trained to be a teacher.
Right. And how long ago has that been?
Oh, that was last century. That was last century, you know. And so, you know, I landed my first job straight out of teaching practice, you know, and the day I stood up in front of my class, I just thought, yes, I'm here, I've arrived. And I had such a great time. We had national curriculum then, but not the restraints that we have now. And what I found in my first few years of teaching was that there would be always children that didn't get it and were a little bit, you know, no matter what you tried, they weren't getting things. And I was quite curious about that, and I wanted to know more about that. And And we were fortunate in the school I was in that we had outside help coming.
Yeah.
And from a specialist support service for those children. Because in schools, when you have children that, you know, are not progressing as expected, then you have to put kind of interventions in. And there were some children that just were not, even with interventions, were not getting it. And we had a specialist service which we then could access to come and do some assessments and come and work with those children. And yeah, so that's kind of, but along the way of that, there were those children that were not getting it, and I was always quite curious about that. And then I had other children that would not do any work, no matter what you tried, but would always be in that drawing corner, doing drawing or writing or something. And I was also curious about that. So along the way, within that, I retrained to be an art therapist and use that in my teaching when I'm teaching. But also working with, within that school role, I then became a SENCo, which is a special educational coordinator, which means you have to have an overview of all the children with challenges in school, be they physical, be they cognitive, you know, that whole range. You need to have an overview, you need to have an understanding of everything. And so from that, you know, in the school, my first school, we also had, not only did we have the specialists come in, we also had something called reading recovery, which was our internal intervention, which meant that children who were identified as struggling with reading went on a 20-week intensive program to see if they were making progress. And if they still didn't make progress, it was like specialist time. So I had the benefit of training and observing on both of those programs. And so that is sort of what led me into becoming a specialist teacher. As a classroom teacher, I will not forget this. I had a boy, even in my teacher's training. Lizzie, I'm going to jump around because everything's popping in my head. Is that okay?
Yes, feel free, Pat. Honestly, feel free.
I think even in my teacher training, so I have a first degree in arts, design, technology, and all those things. And then I went on to teacher's training. And in teacher's training, and I think it's changing now, but I think we just had one module, not even a whole module, but one lecture on special educational needs. And I really can honestly say, I do not remember dyslexia coming up in that. I do not remember that. We talked about learning needs, but I do not remember that word dyslexia coming in. And it's not until I'm into my career thinking, what's going on? That a colleague of mine said, you know, I think maybe he may be dyslexic. You know, a child in my class, and he was struggling to spell his name. And I thought, but in all other areas, he was just flying all over the place. He was good in lots of other areas, but this. And I thought, wow. So, you know, I went on a Saturday course, which is an introductory. So for all those people that think teachers' jobs start at 9 and finish at 3:30, they most certainly do not. So I went on a Saturday course, and it was an introduction to dyslexia. And I thought, wow. Okay, so then once you get that, you implement those strategies into your classroom for all the children, particularly this one, but it still wasn't enough. And so I got the opportunity to take a sabbatical and go and work for a specialist team that worked with children on a one-to-one level that had these literacy challenges. And after my year up, I left teaching. I came back for a term, left teaching, and went back to the specialist, and then retrained as a specialist teacher. And that course was a year long. And I'll tell you this again about teachers. Our job does not stop. It was in the evening. And by this time, I was a mother. So I was working part-time as a mother, and studying in the evening for this specialist course. And the rest, Lizzie, that was still last century. No, that was this century. And I've been doing that ever since. Ever since.
Wonderful. Now, I know you've told me a little bit about why you went into it, or how you became a specialist teacher. But I want I want to read a little bit about your biography, because I think it's really important. Yeah, I think it's really, really important that I do that, simply because you've done lots and lots of work around, you know, a bit more than what you've explained. And I just wanted to share that with our viewers and just read a little bit about your biography, which I find really fascinating. So,
Lizzie,
Patricia,
has my picture come up yet? Has my picture come up yet? Oh dear. Okay, we can continue.
We've actually put the flyer that we promoted up. Yeah, but we're still having a technical hitch, but it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So Patricia Taylor holds MA in SpLd Dyslexia and has worked in the field for more than 15 years. As a qualified teacher, Pat has over 25 years of teaching experience. She has worked as a mainstream class teacher, SENCo, and out-of-school project coordinator. As a specialist dyslexia teacher, her role has also involved assessments and delivering training to schools. She has taught in a range of settings, including hospital, community, organizations, and pupil referral unit. Additionally, Pat is also a qualified art therapist. Most recently, alongside working in schools, Pat has become more involved in community work, teaching and raising awareness about emotional impact of dyslexia, which is really, really important. That I mention that, because I normally say to people, having the condition is all right sometimes, and then you've got all the emotional baggage that comes with it. And that's what, if we don't do something about that, is when it becomes a real issue. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So you've told us why you decided to train as a dyslexia specialist teacher. I'm just going to move on to my next question. Why is it important for parents to seek support for their children with dyslexia at a young age?
I think the earlier you do it, the better, because at the end of the day, you want your children to thrive. And if they're struggling and you see they're struggling, then you get them the help. You seek support for them. Because, you know, as an adult, if you find something difficult, you have the experience to go and find help and ask for help. But children don't have that. They kind of they, you know, when they look around and their peers are doing something effortless and they find it struggling and they don't know why, they don't necessarily have the language to ask for the help. So I think as a parent, it's really important, because sometimes you have an inkling that something's not going right, and you know, it's best to approach the schools and say, well, I'm not sure, you know, go and find the schools, because also your child will then lose confidence and maybe not want to go to school because they find things hard.
Yeah.
You know, and that can lead to a whole spiral of things, an absolute whole spiral of things. And I have seen that with my own eyes in a classroom. You know, our society is littered with casualties like school for whatever reason who did not get the support. You know, it's so important, because you want your child to shine, and you want your child to achieve the best they can achieve, and you want your child to be confident, you know, and just go for it. And if they don't have support to do that, how are they going to be? You're not going to see your child, you know, if your child falls in the water and the water's going over their head and they're drowning, are you going to stand there and let that happen? I don't think so. You're going to want to rescue your child and support your child and give the child the best that you can give them. You know, you're not going to just leave them to flounder in any other situation. Why do that in school? You know, school is about it's a partnership, or even a three-way relationship. It's about you, the school, and your child, and you all have to be. You know, your child needs a team. If your child is struggling, your child needs a team of support. And you have to be your child's biggest supporter.
Right. Now, as you were talking, Pat, we've had a couple of messages come up. It's rather unfortunate that the techie stuff didn't work, but hey, the most important thing is we get the message across. Now, a message has come up, and I think Alex in the studio is just going to put that back up. So, right, Mike, yes, Mikey Jumby. I think it is.
Okay.
I said, good evening. What is the most rewarding aspect of your role as a specialist teacher? And how does art therapy play a major role in the work you
Oh,
do? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
wow. You know what? The most rewarding thing is it is fun.
Mm-hmm.
It is no two children are alike, and it's really relational. And when you see a child that has been struggling, with just, for instance, those words that always crop up and then suddenly they get it and they look at you and you look at them and it's like, yes, and they say to you, Miss, I'm not going to forget that now. And we're laughing, it's fun. That's that's the most rewarding thing, when, and, not everything is a tick box. If you say, does the child know their alphabet? The alphabet means a whole lot of things. Alphabet is, do they know the names of the letters? Do they know the sound? Do they know the sequence? A child might not know their alphabet, but they will know some of it. And sometimes the progress is that they're able to sequence their alphabet correctly from A to F.
Mm-hmm.
That's progress.
Of
And when you
course.
see that, or a child that's struggling to read a small word such as cat, and then they can read it.
Yeah.
And then they can read another word like that, and they're searching, and then they're looking at you and you're looking at them and you're like, go on, give it a go, you can do it. And then they do it. Joy, absolute joy.
Of course.
It's words cannot explain that feeling, you see. It's just,
it must be amazing, Pat, because even for me as an adult, I mean, for me as my dyslexia wasn't even picked up till I was in my mid-30s. But every time someone walks into A2i Dyslexia and they feel like we're able to help them with whatever request they came with, the feeling of just thinking, wow, no money, you can't even put a price on it, Pat.
No.
You
And when
couldn't put a price on it.
You cannot put a price on that. And when, an adult will come to me that I can't read, I need help with reading. You need a different approach. But and I'll look at them and I'll say, and then we'll have some more conversation around that. But actually, when you look at it, I'll say to them, I think there will be some things you can read. Maybe you mean you cannot read as well as you'd like to, because in my experience, even the adults say that I can't read, there is always something they can read, Lizzie, and then you build on that. You look at what they can do, not what they can't do. You look at what they can do, and then you build, because there is always something, always.
Wonderful.
Always something. And the art therapy, how does the art therapy come into it? It's that, a lot of dyslexics are in that kind of right brain creative thing. And I always use that if they're getting anxious or nervous. That's always my starting point. Okay, let's have some paper, let's do some drawing. And for me, when I'm in that teaching and that one-to-one, I have to really pay attention to not only the verbal, but the non-verbal. I have to watch carefully to see, are they engaging with me? Is this too hard? Is that too hard? So they're not always saying, you'll not always know, but it is definitely a relational thing. And do they trust you to come to you and say to you, no, Miss, I can't do that. That's too hard.
Of course.
And I would say 90% of my initial job, is to get their confidence back up, to build their confidence. And you have to do that by any means you can.
And you do that so, honestly, Pat, you do it so well. Your job is just, phenomenal. Parents that constantly, just to say to our viewers that, Pat does some contracted work for us or freelance work in the past. And some parents, and I know a particular parent who is actually watching right now, and if she is watching, would love to just literally keep giving the comments. And how that particular parent said, look, my child's life is completely turned around. With that support that Pat's given my child, weekly, it has just been phenomenal, and that's the importance of seeking the help from a very young age. Well, I know that, you know, certain cultures, certain communities may not necessarily talk about dyslexia and specific learning difficulties. But I just wanted to say, if you are watching today and you feel that your child may have this condition, dyslexia, I would urge you to go for help, to seek help ASAP, because it now kind of moves me on to my next question, which is what are the repercussions of not getting the support for the individual child with dyslexia? What could go wrong, Pat?
Well, where shall we start this? Okay, so picture this. Your child is struggling in school and the peers can do this effortlessly. How do you think your child is going to feel? Your child is going to feel stupid. Your child is not going to want to be in school, in that class. As a consequence, they may do anything they can to get out of school, out of the classroom. So not getting that support can lead to behaviour challenges in school, which can lead to, further up, exclusions. Once you are excluded, where are you going to go? Which can lead, exclusion can lead you in that pipeline to prison. You'll be drifting around because you've come out of school. I mean, let's go on a normal trajectory. So if you just go through school, education is not for everybody. That education system doesn't work for everybody, whether you have dyslexia or not. But if you have those challenges in reading, spelling or writing, and you're not supported, doors close to you. You know, they said in that prison population, 34%, between 34 and 50% of that prison population are semi-literate. What that means is in the prison, how are they going to read that prison information? So in that prison system, they're going to get more sanctions. And then when they come out, how are they going to fill in job applications? You know, support needs to be there from early. And, you know, even if that it's not always prison, but, you know, how, you know, you're going to get, you know, examples of, you know, you can't do something effortlessly. You want to get out of that, you know, feeling stupid. You're going to shrink. You're going to feel stupid all the time. It means you're not going to want to even try things that are open to you. You're not going to feel good enough for anything. And so you're never going to discover the strengths. You're never going to discover your strengths. So it's really important. And I think as a parent, you know, you need to be persistent. And notice I say persistent, not necessarily confrontational, because as a teacher, I would not like to be, you know, I wouldn't like that. But you know, you need to be your child's champion, you know, and you need to be persistent. If you notice something, you can just go to school and say, look, I've noticed this. School have all sorts of interventions. Yes, they're being cut, they're being squeezed left, right, and centre, and they have challenges, but they still have interventions for your child. You know, they'll put them on the intervention, they'll do small group, they'll differentiate the work, they'll do all sorts of things. But it is, for you as a parent, you need to monitor that. You need to check and say, well, okay, my child is receiving this support, you know, and just go in and monitor how's he doing. And the teachers will have those open conversations with you, you know. But also, Lizzie, on that note, I've just thought of something. Dyslexia is hereditary. You know, so if you yourself as a parent, you know, it might be that your child is repeating your experience at school, but your child is not you, and things are different. So you still need to be the champion for your child, you know. The amount of, you know, and in certain communities, it's a stigma, and, you know, and I'm going to name it out here. Let's see, you know, in some African and Caribbean cultures, this whole thing is very stigmatized. But I think, you know, we need to look at where that stigma comes from. And the stigma is that educationally, you know, the systems are set up that say pupils from this are educationally subnormal. There's a classic text of how the West Indian child is made educationally subnormal in the British system. And what that meant was those that came over, if they didn't understand their accent, they went into special schools. And so, you know, it doesn't matter how bright you were, deemed not, if they couldn't understand your accent, that was it. You were shunted across. You know, if you didn't you're brand new to the system. It's a different system, even though in the Caribbean it's based on the British system. The British system in Britain is something different. You know, so you're not necessarily going to catch on that quickly, but that doesn't mean you're not intelligent. You know, so and I think that's where part of the stigma comes from. You're reluctant to, you know, seek help in case your child is then labelled. But sometimes that label can help, but you just need to be vigilant and ask questions and seek the support for your child. You know, the amount of times I've heard, oh, you know, oh, they're lazy, they're stupid. You know, why call your child stupid? As an adult, do you like to be called lazy and stupid? I don't think so. I do not think so. And let's look at that word lazy. What does that word mean? If that book is closed, are you going to call your child lazy because the book is closed? Or is there a reason why that book is closed? And what does lazy mean? Lazy means I'm not doing it in the time you want me to do it, or I'm not doing it your way. Let's look at that. What is that? You know, we need to understand those things rather than just blanket them, you're lazy or stupid. When you have a difficulty or a challenge such as the currency here is reading, writing, spelling. It's a huge currency. And when you have challenges in that, you have to work so hard because your brain processes things differently. Dyslexia is about processing speech sounds and mapping those sounds onto the letters. That is hard. That is so hard because one letter, your letter A, can make so many different sounds depending on what other letter in the alphabet it's next to.
Of course,
you know, and if you're struggling with that mapping, that kind of, like, you can often find a child who will be able to, you know, they teach them a lot of phonics, and the child will be able to sound out all the letters correctly, but then not necessarily be able to push those back together to make one word.
Yeah, and I think someone's just put up a really, really good question. I think if Alex can put that back up for me. How do the parents go about seeking help, and what are the first steps that needs to be taken, is what they've said. Now, that's a very interesting question, I think that is, because we get lots of phone calls and people are like, oh, I think my child might have dyslexia. I don't even know where to begin. Yeah. And then sometimes you get the parents say they've been to the school, they're on a waiting list, it's taking forever. What next? Now, this is when I say, well, sometimes you just have to invest, or you know, you're going to go private. But anyway, that question I'll leave to you to answer back. So the question is, how do the parents go about seeking help, and what are the first steps that need to be taken?
The first steps are to go to the class teacher and say, I think, you know, name what you think is going on for the child. Talk to the class teacher and ask the class teacher, you know, what can you do as a parent, and also what can you do in partnership with the school to help your child? What interventions are available? What can you do? You know, what can the school do to help as you feel this is? That's always your first point of call. Even if the school say, well, there's a long waiting list, it's not that your child will be sat on the end of this long waiting list doing nothing. They will have interventions. They will differentiate the work for your child. You know, so you know, ask them, you know, what can you do? And I'm bearing in mind here that dyslexic children come from dyslexic adults, even if the adults may or may not. Someone in the family somewhere will have it, elements of it, and even though it presents differently. Somebody might have the difficulty with reading, somebody else might have the difficulty with spelling, but it will be there somewhere in the family.
Yeah.
And the important thing is to have the conversations with your child. Acknowledge that your child, not have those conversations with your child. You know, I notice you find this a little bit tricky. We're going to see what we can do about it. You need to reassure your child that, you know, we're going to try, things are going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, we've had parents come to us, thanks for that, Pat. We've had parents come
Mm.
and they've come to assess their child. And
Mm-hmm.
it turned out that whilst they're there, they're like, actually, maybe I should get a screening
Yeah.
as an
Mm.
indicator. And, or sometimes they'll come and say, well, actually, the behavior that Joe Blocks or, I don't know, Sarah or Thomas or whoever it might be, is
Mm-hmm.
exhibiting, I was the same when I was a child. And you're
Yeah.
like, well, okay, well, maybe. And that's when
Mm.
you said it's genetic, it
Yes.
actually is.
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
actually not see, if you were a child as a parent, obviously, and you struggled anyway, and you're seeing the same thing in
Yeah.
your child, then the first thing I would have thought will be, let me go and seek help, rather than
Yeah.
maybe thinking that they're not trying hard enough or they're
Mm.
lazy or whatever the word
Yeah.
might be. Um, and I just think it's really, really important that,
It is very
particularly,
important,
yeah,
honestly,
I'll say
particularly.
particularly from the BAME community, if I must say that,
Yeah.
because that's the community I'm from. And I know
Yeah.
that as I was growing up, I did hear those words a lot. You know, why are you so
Mm-hmm.
different? Why are you not doing the same as your siblings are doing? Why are you so slow? Why is your handwriting so
Oh my
bad?
gosh.
Why are you not focusing? Why are you excluded from school again?
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes the pupils referral unit is leading to other things, as you and I
Oh my
know, but
gosh.
yeah.
And the pupil referral unit is littered with children who have literacy difficulties that have not been picked up. And because what happens is the behavior gets focused on. They mask their difficulties with behavior. And so the behavior gets focused on. The behavior gets focused on. But let me tell you something, Lizzie. Behavior is a communication. You just need to work out what is that behavior communicating to you. Particularly in boys.
In boys,
Girls
yeah.
mark it very differently. But there's all sorts of stuff going on. Can you imagine if you can't read, the embarrassment,
Mhm.
shame, the teasing you would get from your peers if you just spell something wrong? What? And your peers will be the first one to say, "What, you stupid or what? What's that with you?" So the rage you will feel. You just want to be out of that door by any means. You want to be out of there.
Or you want to fit in. So because you want to fit in, sometimes you just end up going with the wrong set of crowd or whatever that might be. Because
Yeah.
and I know that when I was growing up, from my teenage, it wasn't one of the best. And I'm not proud that I
Mm.
was always excluded from school. I'm not proud of it at all. But it's just come to, as I've got older, I realized that, actually,
Mm.
so that would have been dyslexia, because my dyslexia wasn't picked
Yeah.
up till I was 30 something. So all
Yeah.
those teenage years of the
Mm.
behavioral issues and, not going to school and truancy and
Right.
all that. And like I said, I'm not proud of it, but that's how it was.
That's how
And
it works.
yeah, and I'm just so glad that it was picked up, even though I lost
Mm.
so many years of my
Mm.
education. But when it was finally picked up, it all made sense. And that's why
Sense of
I
relief.
absolutely, and that's why I love the job
Yeah.
I do. And I keep,
Mm.
the voice of dyslexia and keep saying to parents,
Yeah.
please seek that
Yeah.
help.
It's a sense of relief. But also, if you think about that, Lizzie, school, if you can't do the things, primary school is a much more, you have one teacher, it can be picked up at primary school, but also it manifests in different ways. So sometimes it may not get picked up at primary school. And it's not until the workload increases and your brain goes into, you've got so many more things to remember to do at secondary school, that school actually becomes quite traumatizing for you. Day in, day out, you have to go and face that thing that you cannot do. It's about your survival in school when you have this condition. That's why it's so important to support your child. If your child says they're struggling, or if their child is supposed to read and you see that book shut, you need to investigate what's going on. You need to investigate what's going on. You need to have the relationship with your child. Your school experience is not your child's school experience.
Yeah,
Your
of
school experience
course.
might be hard, but it's not your child. And identical twins are different, Lizzie. Each child is different. Each person is unique, and that's what I found out in this job. You can see the same things to identify dyslexia, which is not always that easy to identify. But each person and how they manage and respond to your intervention is different. That's what makes this job like whoa.
Of course. And the thing is, Pat, there isn't many BME, or should I say black people, doing that kind of work that you're doing. There's not many of us, is there?
They're not.
Yeah. So the representation is not even, you can't even, it's not out there for that young boy or that young girl to see that actually it's a black teacher who is a specialist dyslexia teacher. I can resonate, I can actually, they do understand my cultural barriers. There isn't many. I mean, I've been to many conferences to do with dyslexia, and I could probably count on my fingers how many of us are in there. And hopefully, we hope
when
that this
I
will
go
change.
to training, I can count on my thumbs how many are in there. When I go to the training, I can count on my thumbs, and I'm like, I don't know why this is. And particularly in the African and Caribbean, that whole stigma. That is why when I'm in schools and stuff like that, I like to be very visible so the parents can see. And even now that I'm in the community, doing more in the community, I watch, you can see those, it's those little things when you see the shoulders go down, a sense of sigh of relief. And what you want to know is that somebody sees your child. That's the thing when they, this person is going to see my child. They're not going to see the stereotype, and they're not going to see the headlines. They're not going to think, oh my gosh, those things that can happen. You want somebody that's going to see your child. And sometimes it's as simple as seeing somebody that looks like you. You cannot underestimate how important that is. I mean, at school, I remember the first teacher we had in our school where was he from? He was from Barbados, and he was our housemaster. And our house was particularly rowdy, and it had a number of boys from the Caribbean who were always bouncing. They were just lively, but, and I'm going to be very blunt, other staff couldn't manage them. But when this man came, what a turnaround. Because there was somebody that could look at them and just look at them and say, I see you. I know what that means. And that is huge. That is absolutely, and it's those little nuances, the little slippy things, And I'm not saying, what I am saying is that it's important. It's important to see someone that looks like you.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if you don't get on with them, but you just need to see that person. So your shoulders can go down. You can have a sigh of relief. It says, oh, wow.
Yes. Thank you.
Now, I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm sorry, Liz, I've seen it. If you don't see it with your own eyes, you don't believe it. But I've seen, particularly with our boys, a lot of them outside the classroom doors, and I'm thinking, what's going on there? And somebody will say, oh, he's coming with you. And somebody, another member of staff might whisper, oh, good luck. And I'm like, what does that mean?
What's that mean?
Yeah. And you sit with them, and then you see this person, And I had one that was just, he had literacy difficulties, which was why, and plus there were other stuff going on that was bouncing around. I went to pick him up one day, and I'll not forget this, Lizzie, and he was in a rage. And it was really difficult to settle him. So I thought, okay, what is, I said to him, are you angry? And he said, yes. And I said, what's making you angry? And every time I kept saying to him, and what else? And what else? And then we began to write just words about what he was angry about. And the last word was, what is it about angry? And you know what he wrote, Lizzie? Angry just wants a friend.
Okay.
Angry just wants a friend. That's what he wanted. Somebody to see him, somebody to care, somebody to say, I see you. That was the last line of that piece of writing. Angry just wants a friend.
Wow. What amazing, I just want to say to anyone that's joined us now, today we're talking about dyslexia and how Pat became a dyslexic teacher or dyslexia teacher, specialist dyslexia teacher, and how we feel that it's really, really important that, you know, more of us, or Black people and Asian people, go into this line of work, and we can be the representation for the next generation. I just couldn't really hammer on that enough. Which brings me on to my next question, which is quite exciting, actually. So, Pat, do you agree with the saying that dyslexics are out of the box thinkers? And if so, what would you say about that particular question? And how many children?
Exciting.
Yeah. How many children have you seen?
Part of my job.
Right. Because I remember you shared something with me once where you went to a class and you were teaching and you were really struggling. Yeah, go on. Share that story.
That was my class. And I had this I love this whiteboard because it just rotated all over the place and it did fancy things. And then one day it was broken and it was just hanging on its hinge. And I'm like, oh, my whiteboard. And I had some real high flyers in that class. And they're like, oh, Miss Taylor, perhaps you could do this. And perhaps you know. And I had this little boy, he was just a gem, but he struggled, you know, and he just looked at me. He looked at the board and he just said, Miss Taylor, you just need to flip it like this. And he just turned the board and fixed it. One stop. And I was like, whoa, thank you so much. And he was always problem solving like that. You know, we had and also, you know, deficits in one, you know, when you challenges in one area doesn't mean you haven't got strengths in another. Absolutely. That is another thing about seeking support early, because then you need to find out what your child is really good at. And if you don't seek that support, they'll always think they're bad at everything. Key. So, you know what, and this same little one, you know, he struggled with his reading, he struggled with his writing, but my goodness, was he good at maths. And when we turned our classroom into a shop one week, cake sale. I do love a cake, Lizzie. The children made the cake. They went off to do the research. They went to the shops to buy ingredients, and we had this whole cross-curricular thing going on. He designed the shop. He was the shopkeeper because he could look at his money and count it just like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, he was brilliant. I have so many children like that.
Share some of the strengths of dyslexia, Pat, within your many years of teaching. Some of the children you've met, I know, were problem solvers and were out of the box thinkers. There's loads and loads. Share some with us. Yeah.
You know, scientist. You know, he's spelling, could not spell. He's spelling, and I had to say to you know, we're going into year 10, year 9, year 10, and I had to say to his parents, you know, it's a pointless exercise me trying to teach him how to spell. Let's just focus on getting clarity in his writing because he's phenomenal about explaining things. We just need to get that into his writing. And then, you know, this same person could compose music, read music, singer, songwriter, play instruments. Not only that, he was some kind of physicist and he would write these equations on the board about physics, and he'd say to me, Miss Taylor, are you with me? And I'm like, no, not really, but I will just go and get the physics teacher, and I'll have to go and get the physics teacher, and then they'd go into a whole conversation about splitting atoms. And what can I do? Because I don't know any of that. But there are so many children like that, you know, brilliant artists. And you look in the adult world, you look at Dr. Maggie Adirian Poking. And she's a scientist, also dyslexic. She's a brilliant woman. Benjamin Zephaniah. If you look at his writing, you'll be like, what? But my goodness, what a writer.
Absolutely.
There are so many children like that, you know, that can just look at things and just shift it back. And there are jobs that actively seek to recruit dyslexics, neurodiverse people, because they think very differently.
Absolutely. So parents, if you're listening at the moment or watching us at the moment, there's so many different areas that your child could grow up to do. But what we are saying today or on this live show, it's if you do feel that your child may have dyslexia, do seek the help before it's too late. And Pat, of course, have been doing this work for many, many years. I'm moving on to a question that which is my last question. The
Okay.
success rate of children that you've taught, Pat, is phenomenal. Now, I've met some of them and they've all grown up, well, some of them have grown up to do amazing things. And you're still teaching some of the children who are absolutely great. And they really excel, maybe from not being able to engage in class to now being some of them the top of the class. Now, share some of your testimonies with us, if that's okay.
You know what, Lizzie, it's about, for me, the biggest thing is about giving them, my success is about how confident they feel about tackling things. You know, the thing for me is I wish to engage them with the excitement of learning rather than the fear of failure. Because there is always something they can do, always something they can do. And that, you know, I'm searching for those things they can do so they can feel successful. They can feel, have the confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to do that. You know, I'm going to do that. I'm going to just go for it. They, you know, I've had some that are the most brilliant writers. You know, when you get down to it, they can talk, and you know, you help them and they write. And some of them, when they've read their writing to me, you know, when you just completely still, and the hairs go up on the back of your neck. I've had some boys that are such brilliant writers, Lizzie.
Wonderful.
Brilliant
That's
writers.
so excellent.
You know, and for me, the success is when they come back and, you know, say, it's not even a thank you, but, you know, they're still smiling and they're having fun. And I say to them, you know, are we working? What's going on in here? And I said, why are you coming back? He said, but it's fun. And that's the key. It needs to be fun, because if you think about it, you know, when you're having fun, you're willing to take chances and you're willing to risk. And it doesn't matter if you don't quite get that wrong, because then we can work on that together. You know, you don't mind making those errors, because from those errors, you'll be learning. And they begin to see it like that rather than failure. It's only failure if you're not learning.
Wow. Sorry to interrupt you there, Pat.
It's all right. I do go on.
Just one last thing. What advice have you got for our Black community? What advice have you got for the parents and carers? And we can sum that up, you know.
I think, you know, you need to be your child's champion. You need to be your child's support. You know, let's get rid of that lazy, the stigma about it. It's only, you know, it becomes a stigma if you don't, you know, you don't want to entrench that. The world is out there. You know, racism exists, but guess what? It's not our problem. We might get affected by it. You just need to go through that. You know, the world is out there for your children.
Wow. Do you know what, Pat? I don't mean
be their support, not their suppressor.
Right. I don't mean to just interrupt you there, but someone's just put here, they heard one of your pupils became a doctor, Dr. Darling.
That's not quite. Yeah, one of my pupils. That was, you know, that was a long that's not
ago.
Quite their name, but yes, I've seen my pupils float around Houses of Parliament. I've seen them, yes, in that field of medicine. Restaurants, business. A lot of them have their own businesses, and they go on. You know, and yeah, confidence. The confidence to just say, yeah, I can do that.
Wonderful.
That
excellent.
Is, you know,
wonderful. And what a brilliant way to end the show. We've come to the end of the show. I just want to say thank you so much, Pat, for coming on A2i Dyslexia live show, All Things Dyslexia. A big, massive apologies, if I can use that word, for the technical hitch. But hey, the most important thing is we get the information we need, and we've got that. Technical hitch is something that can happen on a live show, and none of us could have would have known that this was going to happen.
And I got my fancy outfit on as well, Lizzie. What a shame it can't be seen.
But it's been an amazing show, and Pat, thank you so much for coming on our live show this evening.
So welcome, Lizzie.
Wonderful.
Lizzie, I have to say, the stuff you do in the community is brilliant. So that's why when I met you, I was like, it's time for me to walk my talk and do my thing in the community alongside you, Lizzie. So that's, you know, we need to just bring it and share it. And I just think you're absolutely amazing. So thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you, Pat. And you know that A2i Dyslexia would never be what it is without all our specialist teachers, without the team, Pat, Emma, Jeanette, Rachel, all the people that help behind the scenes to make it all happen. It's not just me. I just wanted to say that. It's just everybody makes it all happen. And together we can bring change. Jill, thank you so much. Jill said, thank you. We need more teachers like Pat Taylor, who has an understanding and compassion. Thank you so much, Jill, for your message.
Thank you.
Awesome. We've come to the end of the show, and I just want to say thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you again, no doubt. And obviously, we'll be here, same time, same place. Take care and look after yourself. Bye-bye for now. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.